Welcome, everyone. We're so glad you're here tonight, and I will be reading the mission statement. Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non-dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and allow for open dialogue. Attendance today at the Helping Parents Heal meeting is voluntary, and we are here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose child has passed away. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. However, these Zoom meetings are very healing to parents all over the world, and they are all posted on YouTube so that affiliate members who are not in our time zone can also watch. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to be informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal, and we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. So thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you to all our fabulous speakers, and it's all yours, Mark.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. Yes, it is an honor to interview this stellar group. You've perhaps heard of the concept of shining light parents. So briefly, most parents, after their child passes on, will also use words like changes worlds, transitions from earth, are understandably deeply grieving and maybe even stuck for a while in what are called lower energy emotions, pain, sadness, guilt, blame, and so on. And calling them lower energy is not judgmental or critical in any way. It's just the way they measure on the scale of energy by people like David Hawkins, MD, PhD. However, over time, and sometimes quickly, some of these parents start focusing more on higher energy emotions and ways of being that involve peace, joy, love, gratitude, and so on. They recognize that their kids are shining lights now. They're living in in realms characterized by these higher energies, and the parents realize the more they can do that themselves, the more on the same wavelength. So you can learn more about that journey from article number 82 at my website, soulproof.com, and more about When a Child Changes Worlds, article number 2. So articles 2 and 82 at soulproof.com. So I'm honored to interview because it's my clear knowing after 50 years of working in the field of afterlife studies that evolved souls volunteer to go through challenges like this, or knowing that it's going to be heartbreaking, but also knowing there will be exquisite opportunities for growing, for serving others, for loving, for really realizing who you are and why you're here, and sharing those blessings. So these evolved ones now are going to share their answers to these questions. And before we get started, we'll mention all of these tonight are affiliate leaders, which means group leaders around the country. And you can see if there's a group in your area by visiting helpingparentsheal.org/affiliate leaders. We also interview caring listeners, a group of parents who are also shining lights, about 35 of them, who will talk with you for free. They're not counselors, but they have gone through that dark night of the soul journey, emerged from the other side, amazing folks. They're willing to share what worked for them, talk with you, and it's helped a lot of parents. So that you can find them at helpingparentsheal.org/caring listeners. So Rhonda is up first. Tell us, please, dear, about Reese and how he changed worlds.
Reese passed March 27th, 2017, and he did choose to pass. It was of his choice.
Okay. And how did you find out about Helping Parents Heal, and what services of theirs did you first use?
Well, I'm not trying to schmooze you, Mark, but I actually was searching the internet. I don't know what I was researching, but I came across your website, Soul Proof.
Oh my. Tell me more.
Truth. And I mean, it's back in those early days where you're just Googling stuff. So I'm not sure what it was, but what somewhere along there you had recommended Helping Parents Heal. And I think at this point I was maybe 5 or 6 months in. So I reached out, and back then there was like 3 caring listeners. I got in touch with a caring listener, and she said, this was about 6 months before the first conference. And she said, you've got to go to the conference. You have to sign up for this conference. And it took a stab in the dark, and I did. And I was so glad I did.
Excellent. Thank you. And then how did you know it was time for you to serve others, and tell people about your group, please?
Well, the 2 Helping Parents Heal leaders that were in the Austin area, sadly, one of them did cross by cancer, and she had reached out to me because she, it was stage 4, and she just said, I think you would. I'd kind of gotten to know them. She just, said, I think you'd be really good, and and the other leader was kind of ready to just. Move on as well. So I took it over after Daisy passed.
Okay. Excellent. And now it's getting in the personal end of things, but what have you learned in the almost 7 years since, how you can best sense Reese's living presence?
I think it's just what I call the knowing, and that's with a capital K. And it took a while to sink in, to really just believe the whole spirit, it takes time to sink in, because, a lot of us aren't open to this. And I just taken someone else's words, but I just kind of chose to believe. And those little poppy things that pop in my head that aren't my thinking, I just feel like he pops in all the day, and especially if I'm having a bad day, he, turn it around. You need to, the truth. So.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Knowing with a capital K. I don't think I've ever heard it, but that's good. That's in the book. So what are 3 things that you've learned that you wish more parents knew, and knew more deeply?
Probably just, well, I guess simply enough that we do go on, that I think it's as quick as our life here. What I believe our life here is just a real short, probably like a dental appointment, and it goes by very quickly. And this is only a little tiny shot in the dark, what we're going on here. That our children, our loved ones, and all of us, they're always around us, or if we need them, I know they have other things to do. And then I think I've also learned that, which I never knew before, that we've got the guides and the angels to help us get through this. So even when you're sitting in your, house completely alone, you're not.
Okay, here we go. That's some pretty powerful stuff, Rhonda. I'd like you to share a little more, because you make such a good point about this time on Earth being truly a blink of an eye in the span of eternity. What else can you share for parents to help them put that in perspective more, and how the brevity of a human experience compared to eternity is one way to see that it is meaningful to go through all this heartache for the eternal lessons that evolve from it?
Well, I mean, I guess I could go back to, I don't want to throw Bible verses in here, but
feel free.
Okay, I think it's, and I'm not big in it, but I think it's like Romans 8:18, and I don't know it by heart, but I just saw it early on, and it was just, it's something about the suffering that we endure on earth does not even compare to the joy that we're going to have on the other side. And I took that in real early, just knowing that we are going to be suffering. But I think I believe it was somehow planned. And Reese reminds me of this a lot when he's like, this was how we planned it. Okay. So, and when you get over there, as hard as it is now, because we do get upset, but I think it's all going to make sense once we get over there. And I guess just to elaborate a little bit, as crazy as it is, and people that aren't going through what we would go through, I don't want to use the word lucky or fortunate, but in some ways I'm so grateful, because I know before all this, I would have been worrying about getting old and getting, I know I would. And I just turned 60 not that long ago, and I was fine with it. I mean, it was great, it's just, so I'm learning, and it's all going to be okay. And whatever happens here when we get there, I think I'm blabbering now, but it's all going to be good.
Well, it's wise blabbering. And for viewers, she mentioned the word feeling grateful. And if you're early on this journey, that might seem nonsensical, but yeah, that's one of the higher energy emotions. Now so to wrap, yeah, you mentioned this a bit already, that you and Reese had some conversations that perhaps this is pre-planned, that there's a timing and a meaning behind even his passing. What's your understanding of that, please?
Reese's passing, I won't go into it a lot. It was a little bit different in that he did pass by suicide. He was 17. What was unusual in his was that he kept a notebook, and he wrote, I think, over 60 handwritten letters. So his passing was very planned. I don't know at what point. And the police had this notebook for about 6 weeks, and I knew that there was a notebook. I knew he'd written some letters, and I couldn't find it after he passed. And I was like, I figured he probably threw it away or had done something with it. And I was so thankful, because I wasn't ready to see that. But then the police contacted us, and they were like, well, he had another little backpack, a little sling, and it has this notebook in it with all the letters. And then I got that notebook back, and his main message to me was, please hand out all these letters and let people know they can see them. So I guess I believe that he really had a purpose on this earth, and he was I think an old soul. I think most of our kids on here I think they're all old souls, because they're smart, and they've just learned the lesson early. And it was, for whatever reason, this was his plan. So I mean, just knowing that, it gives me, comfort. That's the way it was supposed to be.
Sure. Well, I agree completely. And 2 nights ago, 4 of the 5 children involved passed by suicide. So I mentioned article number 4 at soulproof.com for those of you whose children passed that way. And I can tell you from a cosmic perspective, it's just another way back home. More ignorant, archaic religions might say it's a sin or a slap in the face to God, but these kids just couldn't do it anymore. And they were suffering so much or imbalanced in different ways. So those who had a child pass that way, it's their ticket back home, bottom line. Thank you very much, Ron. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Sandra, you are up next, please. And tell us about Josh and how he passed and so on.
Josh was 30 years old. He was very bright, probably one of the friendliest, kindest people I've ever known. He passed from an accidental overdose, fentanyl. And it's been, let's see, it was March 15th of 2018. So I don't know, we're going on 5 years, 8 months, something like that. Time is kind of crazy right now. I don't keep track of it anymore, just about.
Okay. Thank you. And how did you discover Helping Parents Heal?
It was one of those sleepless nights. I was not getting very much sleep after Josh passed, kept waking up at the exact time that the knock on the door from the homicide detective, just 3:10 a.m., like on the dot every night. I would wake up and have to tell myself it really happened, couldn't get back to sleep. And I'd go out and sit on the computer, and I was searching. I don't know what I was searching for something that would help me. I really just wanted to talk to another parent. And that's when I found Helping Parents Heal.
Beautiful. Ask and you shall receive.
I felt that's what I needed. I needed to talk to another parent, not just someone who lost, a sibling or their parent. Or I specifically knew what I needed, I think.
Beautiful. Yes. And then how did you feel called to serve? And tell us about how you're doing that, please.
I joined the local group, and very quickly she said, "Would you like to be the co-leader?" And I said, "Well, I run a not-for-profit, and I'm very busy. I don't really know." And she said, "Well, no, it's just if I if I can't run a meeting or something." And the next thing you know, they vetted me, and I was in, and she dropped out. And at the time, I was like, "Wait." And it's really just been the greatest blessing. It's like it was all for a great reason, because it's been life-changing for me.
Beautiful. So what have you learned over the years? How can you best perceive Josh's presence, and what can you share with other parents?
Um, uh, I had pretty open mind to it. I lost my mother many years ago, actually, when I was pregnant with Josh. And I felt like I got signs over the years, but then, you think like maybe my head's playing tricks on me. And immediately after Josh passed, he started being present, loud and clear. At first, the signs really weren't pleasant. The homicide detective left the house, and I went to get some Advil out of the cabinet. And when I opened up the cabinet, everything came down. Just like all the shelves, it was like boom, everything came down. And in the beginning, I know the mind is, one of our most powerful organs of the body. And I know that I needed to have him there with me. So I was questioning myself. I was questioning if I wanted it so bad that I was imagining these things. And I shared them a little bit. I was a little hesitant who to share them with. And the very first time I went to see a medium, like everything was confirmed. And I'm not talking about common ones like a feather or a blue jay or a robin. I'm talking about unusual things were all confirmed without me saying a word. I started journaling them. I started taking pictures, and then they started happening with other people around to witness it.
Nice.
And I was just very fascinated and extremely excited. And I actually felt badly when I would meet another parent who would tell me, "I just don't get any signs." And I felt like, I just really feel so lucky. And then of course I worried, oh no, like as time passes, I'll stop getting them. And that has not happened at all. It's almost daily. And I feel like, well, I think, I'm in a very good, peaceful place in my journey since Josh had passed. And I think it's because I do not believe, I know for a fact that death is not the end. If I thought that death was the end, I don't know that I would have healed the way I have. I don't know that my journey, my path, would be where it is today. I feel like actually my relationship with him has continued to grow. I know that might sound strange, but
Beautiful. Yeah,
it
yeah,
really
beautiful.
has. He's stayed 30 in my head, but we've had so much more time together, and actually more time than we had together near the end of his life here.
Yeah, yeah. Other parents have said the same thing. Well, thank you for your honesty about that you questioned the signs in the beginning, because that'll help other parents. And so yeah, be open with that. And that could be why then eventually you start having more signs, because you were honest with yourself and you wanted really clear signs. And to your point about knowing there's an afterlife, yeah, what a difference. I say, when a loved one passes, it's the difference between saying goodbye, never see you again, or saying see you later. And of course, it's a huge difference. And for those who want to see the evidence, articles number 160 and 115 at soulproof.com, sharing all that evidence. And
I apologize for that.
that's okay. Things happen. So what are 3 things, Sandra, that you've learned that you wish you'd like to share with other parents, and hopefully they'll know?
It's hard to narrow it down. That was one of the hardest questions, because there's been so many things that, we only know what we know. And there's so many things that I've learned along the way, and each one of them has been a gift. I think in the beginning, when I was just in so much pain, and I need to figure out how to stop being in this much pain. I can't feel like this all the time. I love my life. I want to be able to love my life again, and I think the thing is that it's very hard in the beginning to understand it's not something you get past. It's not something you get over.
Right.
It's a journey that we continue to go through. I'll continue to go through this journey with Josh for the rest of my life, till hopefully I will be with him again. And I think when I stopped posturing, thinking I want to do whatever I need to do to get to make this stop, to get this over, the pain. And when I came to an acceptance, and acceptance for me no longer means approval, it means understanding. That was a word that, I needed to learn that word. That I understood this was something I was going to carry with me. So I would say that would be the first thing, letting people understand that. The second thing was, I don't think this is a kind of journey we should do alone. And I think, having this support of other parents who understand what you're going through. And I think it's so important to surround yourself with other people who really are speaking the same language. Losing a child is like landing in a country where nobody speaks the language you speak. And they can be compassionate and loving. And, I have wonderful, amazing family and friends that have been amazing. I couldn't ask for more. But nobody understands my language like another parent. We have a unique language and understanding. I know that I can't say anything that people would go, huh? Nobody would ever say, still, it's been almost 6 years and you're still, we understand. But I also think it's important that people know not to push other people out of their life who don't understand. We don't even want them to understand. They shouldn't, they can't possibly, and it's okay. And just understand that everybody just doesn't know what to say or do. And it's our responsibility also to communicate what we need.
Yeah, good point. Thank you for that. We actually need to wrap but I would like to know, what's your belief or knowing about there being a rhyme and a reason, a timing behind even this?
You know, I have done such a tremendous amount of personal growth since has passed, and I'm still on the fence with that. I'm not positive of my beliefs yet. I'm not sure yet, but I know what I know
Yeah.
for sure, and that's something I'm open to, but I'm not certain of my beliefs on that yet.
Yeah, and that is totally okay. Thank you. Beautiful information. God bless.
Thank you.
Ah, Kelly, you are up next, please. And tell us about your dear Alea.
I'd be happy to do that. Alea Jade is our only daughter. She transitioned last May via suicide. She, in this realm, just super vibrant, super caring. She was a connector. I mean, one of the things we heard so much her celebration of life was, and we still hear, she would, if you were in a room with her, she would make sure that she would lock eyes with them, with people, just to make sure that they knew someone saw them. That's so much of what people say about her. She was a musician, she was an actress, she was a cosplayer, super, super vibrant here and there now.
Yes, definitely. That's one thing we've learned in the Soul Phone Project is that everything except the human body carries over, and especially the personality, the dynamism. Beautiful. Thanks for making that point. And how did you discover Helping Parents Heal?
Suzanne Giesman. I had one of my friends, a close friend, had his wife had transitioned a month after Leah via cancer, and he goes, I'm checking this lady out, and I want you to check her out." And that was probably at like month 6 or 7, and I was moving into my own suicidal ideation. So it was just 5 months after she transitioned. I had a safety plan, all the stuff was in place for me. But I started watching her videos on YouTube, and I was like, oh, okay, this kind of makes sense. And she's teaching me how to do it. I thought that was incredible. So, and speaking with other realms was something that we did as a family when Alea was in this realm. I mean, that was something we do pendulum work together. We would read tarot cards. Um, I I have certain beliefs about what I think doctors were calling hallucinations with Alea that I'm not sure were hallucinations at this point. Um, but Suzanne talked about helping parents heal, and I was like, okay, that sounds great. And then she had a live event in Savannah. So I'm in North Carolina. I'm in Western North Carolina. And I was able to go to her mediumship training, and I got to meet her, and I got to meet Irene. And she led us through a couple of really big connecting exercises. And it was then I was just like, okay, this is probably how I'm going to live the rest of my life. And I chatted with Irene, and there was no group in North Carolina, and we're a really long state.
Right.
So yeah.
So I did understand you correctly. Alea just passed last year.
Yes. May 8th.
Okay. Wow. So kudos for serving so quickly. So you felt led then to start a group. What city are you in North Carolina?
So I'm in the closest city to me is Asheville. Everyone knows Asheville. But I don't live in Asheville. I live in the county closer to Tennessee. And there was no group. I just couldn't believe that. So I started a group with my husband, and our group is a hybrid group, which means people can come and meet in person. I have an office. I'm a practicing clinician. I'm a therapist. So we have an in-person option, and we have a Zoom option. So people are coming in from all over for our meetings.
Good job. Well, one reason I asked, my master's in clinical psychology is from Western Carolina University,
Yeah.
and I spent a couple of the best years of my life in Selva, Callaway, Franklin area, rock climbing. Just what a God's country, definitely. Well, thank you for starting a group there. And what have you learned about how you can best sense her presence that you could pass on to other parents?
Alea is a strong, strong communicator. I heard her voice the day after she transitioned.
Wow.
I did. She, and it, even in my dentist's most saddest moments, she'd make herself known. She'd make herself clear. She loves playing music. She's a musician. She's a vocalist and a guitarist. So I'll throw on my Spotify playlist and I'll say, do you want to DJ? I'll hit shuffle and, songs that just make sense come up. There's been some big things happening with her. Any chance she gets to, if I give him a gallery reading, and I don't ever intend for her to come through, she'll come through. We actually have never sought out a medium. Mediums seek out us. That's strange to say, but we've been very fortunate to have developed a relationship with Suzanne Giesman, and have had some readings with her, and Alea really likes Suzanne and chats with her on a regular basis. I mean, she comes to her friends in their dreams. She comes to other moms in our group.
Okay, different ways.
Yeah.
So I'd like to, you made an extraordinary statement. I learned her voice the day after she passed. Tell me more about that, please.
So when she transitioned, we were very fortunate that tribe just descended upon us. I mean, we are a very small family. She's an only child. I'm an only child, so no siblings. And they just came, and we were sitting at the kitchen table, crying, and someone made a comment. It was my cousin, who's like a sister to me, made a comment, and it was kind of a snarky, sarcastic, but funny comment. And I literally heard her voice say, "Yes, queen." And that was Alea's way in this realm of saying, yeah. I mean, so I was like, okay. And then I said that out loud to my cousin and my best friend, and they're used to me being very woo-woo anyway. And we just erupted in laughter. And that's the first thing I heard the day after.
Wow, thank you for that. So what are 3 things you've learned that you wish more parents did as well?
It's such a huge question. I think, both Sandra and Rhonda mentioned like the span of life. And this is really a really intense blip, is my experience, since there's the before and there's the after. And the after has been a really intense blip for me. Alea recently came through to another Helping Parents Heal mom in our group, because we were doing some automatic writing, and she told this mom, make sure you tell my mom it's just one long song. And I really like that metaphor, because Alea has come through with pre-birth memories she's communicated to me, and pre-verbal memories. So I think when we have new parents come in our group, that's one thing I hope they take away, that this is a blip. It's a hard and it's a painful blip at various times. But it's just one, I'm using Alea's word, just one long song. I think one thing that I have found the most helpful is, and we talk about this a lot in our group, is really honoring all sides of grief, which includes human grief, cellular grief, dense grief, and the spiritual aspect of grief. So a lot of times I hear parents get stuck in one or the other, or they immediately go into like the spiritual side of grief. And my belief system is that there's a human cellular side that has to be addressed as well. So I would encourage parents to recognize and allow both, and be a mess as long as you can. Number 3, I wrote something. I don't know. I think the biggest, I have a hard time saying that I've grown in this. And it may be because of where I am. I'm pretty new in this journey. I definitely feel I've expanded on levels I've never thought possible. I'll say that. But I think any parent on this journey at any point, especially new ones, allowing the idea that I literally feel like my DNA changed the day that she left. And I have absolutely embraced every aspect of that.
Wow. And so I think I know the answer, but what's your belief or knowing about there being a timing in her passing?
Well, I will say that that is I'm just now moving into learning about soul planning. I was really resistant until she told me to, in not so many words, to stop and just look at it. So as far as timing, my belief is that, especially how she left, I just don't think that the energetic, her frequency could fit in her body anymore. I just don't. And the exit point was the exit point. And I'm moving into exploring, okay, so what would it look like if I could absolutely find a time or a memory that we sat down and planned this? So kind of a roundabout answer, but the timing's the timing. I had to radically accept it, and I'm just going with it.
Yeah. Well, powerful. Thank you very much. And for parents wanting to learn more about the idea of pre-birth planning, soul planning, I discussed that at length in Article 25 at soulproof.com. Well, thank you again, Kelly. Marla, you are up, please.
Hi, how are you,
Hello.
Mark?
Hello, good to see you. And tell us about your children, please.
So the first child, I've actually, I'm always a little bit hesitant to talk about my losses because it feels a bit overwhelming to people, but it's just been my life. So I have 3 children in spirit. I had 5 children, 3 of them are in spirit. And the first child I lost was in 1976. It was my second child. And I refer to him as Baby Shane because he passed during the delivery. He was a perfectly healthy child, but I was overseas in a hospital that didn't have emergency services. And the delivery just went wrong. And it was I had absolutely no closure with that. I was very young. It just became something that I kind of put away. I did all the classic things that I now teach my clients not to do, to avoid dealing with grief. I did them all. And then, but 12 weeks after, I have to tell you this, even though it's not one of my children that passed, but 12 weeks after that baby passed, because it does involve him, I got pregnant again with a little boy, and we named him Shane. And I knew the minute he was born, it was the same child. I just knew it. And fast forward probably 25 years or so later, I had a reading with Suzanne Giesman, who like, I think it was Kelly said, she reached out to me. I didn't reach out to her. And during the reading, she said, "Is there a twin?" And I said, "No, there's no twins." But I told her maybe it was Ryan because he had named his daughter the same thing as him, Ryan Renee. And she said, "No, I can't read the baby over there because he's back over here already." I'm like, I knew that. And then fast forward to 1995, my daughter Nicole died from leukemia. She'd had a long illness, very incredible child, really incredible. I have so many stories about her. And she was one of my really, really important lessons. And then about 16 months after she was born, my youngest son was born. And so they grew up very close together. His name was Ryan. And many years later, when he was 31 in 2014, he passed by suicide. And they were very, very tight and continue to be.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for mentioning the overwhelm, because, you know, you and I have known each other for a long time. And yeah, I know some people are like, 3, really? Come on, God. You know, I mean, there's challenges, but then there's going overboard. But I can tell you, Marla is one of the strongest of the strong. To quote Mr. T, I pity the fool that gets in her way when she has a vision, so strong. So thank you. And how How did you tell us then? How did you learn about helping parents heal?
Well, Suzanne Giesman seems to be the central figure here. She found out I had gone to one of her readings, and I met the people. It was about Wolf's message, and Wolf's parents happened to be at the meeting, and his job apparently was helping people transition who are passing by suicide. And also he used to give his parents heart-shaped rocks. And so I didn't want to talk to Suzanne. I wanted to talk to them because Ryan used to do that. So I went up and showed them the rock, and we had this long conversation, and some synchronistic things happened around then. And anyway, she recommended that I come see you because you were at that time holding meetings in Sarasota. And so by the time Ryan passed, I had learned a lot of things, and I was open to a lot, and I knew that I could help other parents. So that was my goal, as you know, in coming to see you, was not, why did this happen to me? Because I never have felt really like a victim. And you recommended that I start this group.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll never forget, I got an email from her, and she started it off, I've had 3 children have passed, and then went through briefly how, and she said, I just have one question. And in my brain, I thought, oh boy, how could God allow this, or what kind of God, and she said, how can I help others? And I was like, oh, okay, I have a new hero. I mean, that is, Native Americans have a saying, somebody as strong as a bear. And that's stronger than a bear. Thank you. So what have you learned about sensing your children's living presence?
I'm a bit clairsentient and a bit clairaudient, and also right from the beginning, I could sense Nicole's happiness, and I actually heard from other people who, one of them was a Southern Baptist woman that I was shocked. She told me the next couple of days, a few days after Nicole had passed, that she had heard her on the tennis court helping her catch a shot. Nicole has this really amazing, bright spirit. And every medium who's ever brought her through has said that. Like when she comes in the room, the stars start to twinkle. I feel like she's really, really powerful. And I was actually taken to her in a dream a couple times very shortly after she passed, and it was very real. But I want to just tell this one anecdote also. And my son Ryan comes through that way. Clairsentient and mostly that way, but shows me things visually sometimes too. But I have to tell this story because when I went to the funeral home, I didn't know if I wanted to see her. We had an open casket, and my oldest son said, "Come on, Mom, let's go up." And I went up, and this was such a powerful moment for me. I looked at Nicole's body, and it literally took my breath away, and I said, "Oh my God, that's not Nicole." And it became immediately clear to me, without a doubt, if I'd ever had any doubts, that she was not that body.
Exactly.
And I was raised Catholic. So, I mean, by that time, I had moved quite a distance from that theology, but still, that was such a powerful indicator for me.
Yeah. Wow. Phew. And sounds like she might have set that up too. You say she's such a powerful one.
Yeah.
Anything else on that? Sensing your children?
I hear from them all the time. I have so many stories. I sent you the street sign they sent me with their name on it. After I asked them for a sign one day, and the next morning I get a picture from a friend, and it has their names on it. Ryan, Nicole Court. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But I get really direct, powerful things. I was on my way to a surgery center the other day, and I know they knew I was alone. And I get in the Uber, and this young kid is playing 80s music, and I'm thinking, why is he playing 80s music? And the next thing I hear is Hi, we're your DJs, Nicole and Ryan.
Yeah.
I
There you go. Got to
know.
keep the senses alert, because yeah, they're trying to make contact. It's a question of how much we pick it up. Well, what are some things you've learned that you wish more parents knew?
There's so much, Mark. And I do want to address one thing Kelly said, because I agree with this so much. I'm a grief recovery specialist as well. And I call my work, I tell them my work is at the intersection of the world of spirit and the world of form, because exactly what Kelly said is so true. All of these metaphysical experiences and these strong spiritual connections we have with our kids, they're so affirming and they're so necessary. But our work right now is here in the world of form. And so it is so important for you to feel your grief. And Sandra alluded to this too. You have to feel your grief. You have to go through it. And you have to recognize that, yes, mourn when you need to mourn. But like Sandra said, I knew I didn't, I also felt very powerfully, I did not want to be, in mourning the rest of my life. It's not my nature. And so when I sat down to do this work, I meditated, I asked my guides, how can I be of the most help to my clients and helping parents heal parents? And immediately I heard, you need to get clear on the things that helped you. And I immediately wrote down personal responsibility, acceptance, and willingness. And those three things are so powerful, because the personal responsibility is the piece that makes you own your own healing. If you can't surround yourself, like Sandra was saying, is so important. If you can't surround yourself with a tribe who gets you, there are other ways that you can, take in information. There's, thank God, there's, the internet, there's books, there's so many ways you can educate yourself. But yes, people are really important. The second one, acceptance, I think is the most important, because if you are not willing to, so you have to stop asking why, because there's never going to be a satisfactory answer for that. If you got an answer, it would be, well, why that? We just insist on knowing, that. But the best thing is acceptance. And I love this quote by Fiona Farron: who are you if your story begins to change? Do not be so loyal to your suffering that your healing doesn't stand a chance. And that leads to the third concept, which is willingness. You have to want to move beyond the story of your loss. You can be victimized by life, but you don't have to be a victim of it. And the last thing I would say is just try to get out of the thinking rational part of your brain, the data-driven part of your brain, which is always going to tell you, you didn't hear that, you're making that up, that can't be possible. And open up to your higher self in the other part of your brain, that clear laser focus thinking, compassion, kindness, and openness and gratitude. Those things will help lead you to healing.
Wow, wonderful. I know each one of you has so much to share. This is so difficult to cover all this in 10 minutes, but I know there's a timing and a meaning. What can you share with parents that maybe aren't there yet grasping that, to help them at least consider it?
The very first thing I would say is never, ever compare your journey to anyone else's. We are different. Our children were different. Our life path is different. So it's really important to honor where you are and what's happening for you. For me, it took a while for me to understand this. It wasn't probably until Ryan passed that I was able to take a very high view of what had transpired in my life, and realize that all of that, as Suzanne uses the term, it was a setup. I accept that. They and other parts of my life that were difficult were absolutely the training ground for the things I was meant to do in my life, that I am capable of doing. And it's been, we created a silver lining list in the Tampa group, and each of us talked about something positive that was unexpected that came from our loss, and every single person was able to do that. And for me, it was being able to step into this work that I'm doing and help other parents get through it. And not just people who've lost children, but loss of all kinds, and
Yeah.
helping the collective, really. That's very meaningful to me.
Thank you very much. No surprise. This is wonderful. Thank you again, Amy. That's a tough act to follow. And Amy, you're up, please. Tell us about your Chris and how he moved into the next phase of forever.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for asking. Chris was our beautiful 21-year-old son. He had just graduated from college and was living at home with us while he was, looking for a job. And he was killed in kind of a random accident that happened. Very sudden, and just, tore the family apart, tore my heart apart. And it was so hard to believe that it happens, just with no warning.
Yeah.
And he made his presence known really quickly. So, I mean, I came from basically no religious background. So I didn't have anything that I was fighting, but I also didn't have anything to lean on. And about the third day after he passed, my husband and I were at the chiropractor's trying to kind of get put back together so that we could make it through the service and the celebration for his life. And I'm lying on the table, and all of a sudden he was there. I don't know how else to say it except that I could see him in my mind's eye, and I knew that he was telling me that he was fine. He was just fine. And he had this beautiful glowing ball of energy he was holding, and he reached down and handed it to me. And what my chiropractor and my husband could see was me reaching up and taking just like this and taking it to my heart. And it was so powerful, and tears were pouring down because it was just life-changing. And then I handed it back up to him, and it completely changed how I handled his passing, and everyone else in the family handled his passing. And yeah.
And how did you get hooked up then with Helping Parents Heal?
Well, the funny thing is my mother-in-law found a announcement in the local newspaper, believe it or not. Was in the Sunday faith section or something like that, which is strange because she really didn't have a faith that I knew of at the time. But she did know that this was about maybe a year and a half after he had passed. And I had been reading and happened to have read Dr. Brian Weiss's books and Robert Moody and just a whole bunch of them. And she found this announcement that Marla had put in the paper, that she was going to have this meeting at a local facility. And Tinka said, I think you might be interested in this. And I said, absolutely. So she came with me. I think my husband came with us as well. And, it was it this first meeting, Marla? I can't even remember. It was either the first or second meeting, but we just hit it off, and the message was incredible. I just knew that this was the right place to be, and I could feel Chris there. And then when she asked if I wanted to be a co-leader, I said, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah,
So,
you all have such a great team down there. So what can you pass on to other parents about perceiving their children's passing, their children's presence, rather?
right. Well, I will say that in the first probably month and a half after he passed, he was sending messages like crazy, and I wasn't getting it. I mean, I knew something was happening because the bathroom lights would flicker every night when we went to bed, and I would go in the bathroom and they'd be flickering, and then I'd leave the bathroom and they'd stop flickering, and I'd go to get in bed, and the bedside light would flicker. And I was in such a fog that I'm like, there's
Sure.
something wrong with the electricity in this house. We need to get it fixed. And so,
And he's
finally,
working
so it
his
was
tail
someone.
off.
I know, right? He was
Yeah.
trying so hard. And finally,
Mhm.
I met someone who, was in this conversation and said, "Oh, that's Chris. Oh, that's Chris." And because of how he died, he's particularly adept with electricity. And so he still shows signs. He comes more with animals. That is kind of the way I notice him. A bird will follow me while I'm walking, near the water, or a squirrel I walk out and the squirrel runs up, looks at me for about a minute and doesn't move, and then goes up and then turns around and looks at me again for another minute or so, and then takes off. So little things like that. Sometimes music. We had a magical moment of driving very soon after he had passed, and we were up in the mountains, and the song that our family always played when we were on vacation, and my husband would blast it out to wake the kids. It's a Beautiful Morning by the Rascals. And then as we're coming down this corner in the fall, all of a sudden this golden shower of leaves comes pouring down, and we both, tears were coming down our face, and we just knew it was him. He was just letting us know he was there.
Yeah.
So
Boy, that's a great song. Thank you for reminding me of that.
yeah. And
So
I'll say that it doesn't happen. I don't get the signs as often now. And I think that's because I'm, 10 years into this wild ride, and I have become more earthbound in recent times in dealing with life as it is in the physical world. But I think it's also because I don't need it as much.
sure.
So sometimes I might ask, but it's I guess one of my messages to parents about this is that, in the beginning you think nobody knows what you're going through, and you don't know if you'll ever be able to get through it. And you can get through it. You will and it's in fact, there are so many beautiful lessons. I think about it, and I'm a completely different person than I was before this happened. And I thank my son for giving me those opportunities to become this person, because it's like having a baby. You'll never know what it's like to have a baby until you have one. And it's kind of like that. I feel like I was kind of rebirthed.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have chosen it, but the gifts were many afterwards.
Sure. So you've kind of moved into this already, but what are some things that you've learned that you would wish that more parents knew deeply?
That there are a lot of people who have no idea how to handle their own emotions, let alone how to be around you. And you may have people that will pull away because they're just afraid. And, I didn't judge them, because they can't know what to do. They can't know what's the right thing to say. And the right thing to say for me might be different than the right thing for Sandra or Kelly or Kathy or any, all of us need something different. And those around us who have not been through it before, you can't blame them. I had one woman, I went right back to work pretty soon afterwards, and I had a woman who saw me across the room and scooted away. And it happened a couple times in the grocery store where people would kind of see you and hope you didn't see them
Sure.
move away because they couldn't handle it. And I just realized that I have no idea what they've gone through in their life, that it's just so daunting to them. And some of them actually came up later and said, "I'm just so sorry. I just didn't know what to do, and I was going to break out crying," or, so you just don't know. So
Good
it's,
stuff.
yeah.
So how about your knowing about there being a timing and a meaning behind Chris's passing?
Well, it's kind of interesting because before he passed, and he wasn't, I don't think he was back from school yet, but there's some pictures of him. And I had not noticed it before, but I was noticing it in this period. It was maybe the couple months lead up to when this accident happened. And I remember looking at it thinking, gosh, he's kind of glowing in this picture. It's almost like he's too much. He's more than just that person in this picture. And then, of course, you shake it off like, just imagination. And then the night before he died, he came to he left. I was on the phone with my other son, and he said, "Okay, Mom, I'm going to see my girlfriend." And I said, "Okay." I'm on the phone. I said, "Okay, see ya." And as soon as he left, I thought, "Oh, that I need to talk to him." And I called him up, and my husband and I had a conversation about our relationship with him, and I was realizing I was pushing him too hard, and I called him up, and we just had this beautiful conversation that last night, and that was the last time I talked to him. Was just to say, I'm here to support you. You help tell me what I can do for you, and you know what, I love you, and have a beautiful evening. And I mean, what a gift that was.
Yes.
So that seemed, I don't know, that seemed to have come as a blessing. That I don't know the source of that, but it showed up in my life.
Sure.
And
Help prepare you some, and I'm sure
yeah,
helped him. I mean, he's getting ready to go on a big trip, and well, thank you so much, Amy. So powerful. And by the way, every one of these leaders, I mean, I saw partway through we were going to run over a bit, but I can't shorten it. I mean, how do you stop Amy? Everyone should have at least an hour, okay, a day. With that though, Kathy, you are up, please, and tell us about your Ross and how you got into all this. And you'll need to speak up
Yes.
to,
Yep.
there we go.
Hi. Hi, Mark.
Hello.
Well, my Ross passed in April of 2016 from suicide, but he had addiction issues for about 9 years prior. And so it was a real struggle. He had a real struggle, but he was bright, he was smart, he played guitar, he was funny as heck, and a real leader among his friends, and just funny, gave the best hugs. So that's who Ross is, and still is.
And how old was he again?
He was 5 days away from being 23.
Okay. All right, we'll call it that. And how did you discover Helping Parents Heal?
One day I was first I had been going to a grief support group about 9 weeks after Ross passed. It was a group specifically for people who had either had children pass from drugs or drug-related death. And so I was already in that. But I happened to be just searching on the internet, and I don't even know what I was looking at or what, but I started reading this article about this lady that lived in Tampa that had lost 3 children. And I'm going, oh my God, and I couldn't even believe it. And of course it was Marla. And then I found out, well, she has a meeting here in Tampa. It's like, oh my God, I'm in Tampa. And then I went and read what the mission of the group was, and I said, oh my gosh, this is right up my alley. So I just told everybody in my current grief support group, come on. Yeah, I think I brought nine people with me, and we came to a meeting, and that's how it started.
Beautiful. And I've had the privilege of presenting to their group a number of times, and when you see those 3 together, Kathy and Marla and Amy, they love and they like each other so much. It's just joyful to be around. Or what are some things you've learned, Kathy, about sensing his presence that you can share with others they might try or be open to?
Yeah. Well, I actually sensed Ross for the first time on his birthday, 5 days after he passed. I was looking at pictures of his prior birthdays, as a little kid, and the light overhead kept flashing on and off. And I thought, oh my gosh, something wrong with my, light switch, and I'm clicking it on and off and it's not working correctly. And then I went back to the pictures, and then it was doing it again. And it never did it again. But after I think the second time, it finally dawned on me, this is Ross. He's acknowledging that I'm looking at his pictures, because I was looking at a picture to put on Facebook.
Mhm.
And the funny part was, right at that time, one of the neighbors knocked on our door to bring me a casserole, and she was expecting, a bereaved parent sobbing. And I'm like, oh my God, I got a sign from Ross. And I'm like all excited. And she probably thought I had absolutely lost my mind.
Oh, that's great.
So, yeah.
Well, at
so
least you didn't
that-
call the electrician like Amy.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
and by
since-
the way, this laughter and this kidding back, I mean, for back and forth, if you're a recently bereaved parent, you may think, how can they laugh or how can they have fun? But I tell you what, the kids are having fun and they want us all to have it as well. So what are 3 things that you've learned that you wish more parents knew, Kathy?
Oh my gosh. I think that one of the main things is that when something like this happens in your life, your first thought is my life is over. How can I go on? And you don't see a way out of it. And I think just for me, having a support group so early on, at the 9-week part, I was, already in a support group and talking to people who were, where we could talk to each other, and then finding Helping Parents Heal. I think one of the best things I can offer is to find that support as early as you can. The other thing is, I did as much reading as I could about the afterlife, because I knew my son wasn't gone. I just had to figure out where he was and how to keep that communication going.
Beautiful. What else?
Gosh, well, there's a whole list of things I could say, but one of the things I would tell new parents is to take care of yourself the first year, like take care of your health, the eating, the drinking, the sleeping. And I had to just kind of pare everything down to the lowest common denominator. I didn't want noise. I didn't want music. I couldn't even listen to music for about 2.5 years. It was just too much. It was like my body was in I don't know, it would like numb, just everything. And I just needed to be healing. And so I just surrounded myself with a few close, supportive, positive friends, who would just let me have my signs when I found them, and not, make fun of me for it, or, say, oh no, that's just a feather, or, something like that. Just take really good care of yourself, because grief is exhausting, especially the first.
So strong. I knew there's a reason I asked for something more. Yeah, the saying, be still and know I am God, and know we are each part of God, requires a shift and some incubation time. So finally, Kathy, what is your belief or knowing about there being a timing and a meaning behind even something as apparently horrible as a child's passing?
Well, it's kind of funny, because when you were asking other people this, it popped into my mind that about a week before Ross passed, we were having Chinese food, and Ross wasn't there, but my mom was, and she was reading the fortune cookie, and she was reading hers, and then I was reading mine, and mine said something about whatever you've been dealing with for the last nine years will come to an end. And I looked at that, and my mom said, oh, that probably means Ross is going to get, clean, and, things are going to be good. And I didn't say it because I didn't want to put it out into the universe, but I thought to myself, or this could mean, he's not going to make it here. But I absolutely believe in soul planning, and I know for a fact that I'm a better person now than I was when he was here. And I mean, I wasn't a terrible person, but I just come with a more open heart now, more compassion for people, and just living one day at a time with my son, and just trying to be of service during the time that I'm here.
Well, you're doing it. Thank you so much. So powerful, so clear. And to all parents, truly such a privilege. Lynn, anything you want to say before we part for the evening?
No, I'm just so grateful for all of these parents, and for those of you that are new to this journey, there is hope. You can find joy, and thank you, Mark. Thank all of you.
Yes. God bless you all. And for people who view this, watch it at least twice. You won't realize how much each one of these parents shared until you listen the second time, and put it to use, and let us know how we can help and what you need. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good
Thank
night.
you.
Night.
Thank you, Mark and
Thank
Lynn.
you, Mark and Lynn.
Thank you.
Especially my mama.
We love you
Yes.
guys.
Love you all.
Thank you.
Love
Thanks
you
a
too.
lot for all your input.
God bless you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Whew. I can't even move. This is so powerful. Wow. See you soon, sisters. Bye now.